Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Elivaras, and welcome back to Total War Warhammer. Today, we have a friendly 1v1 between myself and a fellow member of the Discord, Athamas. I will be heading up the Empire in this match, and Athamas will be heading up the Greenskins. So let's take a quick look into the comps before we get started here. So, I've got 4 units of Swordsmen in the front line. One of them is Sigmar's Sons, just for some meat in the front line. You can see I've got 3 units of Greatswords in reserve to put where I need them the most, because obviously I don't know exactly where his troops are going to be matching up. If he's going to maybe shift the line over so that the majority, comes from this side, or the majority comes from this side, or he sends Black Orcs like over there, instead of just straight ahead. You never really know. So I've got my Greatswords in reserve so they can respond to wherever the Black Orcs are, since that's going to be my major Black Orc killing unit. You can see I've got my Handgunners here, bit of a longer line. You can see, and then behind them I've got 3 units of Spearmen. So I thought that he was going to bring a decent amount of cav because I played him a few times before. So I have my Spearmen in the back so that they can respond and be wherever they need to be. And I've also got the Stirland's Revenge, which can be really good. They do have stock. They've got armor-piercing missiles. They are good in melee, so if you, for example, Squig Herd that he has here, or an Orc Boy unit, for example, breaks through, they're going to be able to hold their own, and they do quite a bit of damage and are immune to psychology. And you can see for my cavalry forces, I've got the Empire Knights, hopefully to chase down potential archers and smash some holes into the enemy line. And then I've got my Demigryphs or the Royal Altdorf Gryphites, the Regiment of Renown Demigryph, for anti-cavalry. And you can see here I've got my General of the Empire on a Demigryph, I believe. Flying Demigryph, I think. Not sure. And now, going on to the Greenskin force. We can see on each flank we've got Squig Herd and Orc Boy Big Uns. Squig Herd is going to be hopefully I think what he's planning to do with the Squig Herd here is potentially make his way around the flanks as his army advances forward, and then hopefully kind of break through and get into my Handgunners, who are going to have a very hard time against Squig Herd. Squig Herd will tear through them. And then he's got the Orc Boy Big Uns to take on any cavalry I have. Perhaps, he's sending the Squig Herd forward. I move the Empire Knights to respond, and then he sends the Orc Boy Big Uns to charge into my Empire Knights and shut them down. We'll see how that ends up working out. You can see he's got a mixed line of Orc Big Uns, Savage Orc Big Uns, Black Orcs, Orc Boyz. So his Savage Orcs are going to do really well in the sense that they're going to tear through a lot of my low armored infantry. So my Swordsmen and my Spearmen are going to take massive hits from the Savage Orcs. The Black Orcs, almost always necessary on the Greenskins, as they are really one of the best infantry units in the game, can really hold their own and can really take a beating. And one of the only Greenskin units that have a decent amount of leadership. You can see reinforcing his front line, he's got a Night Goblin Shaman, he's got Grimgor Ironhide, and a Goblin Big Boss. And this Goblin Big Boss is indeed on foot, which you don't see very often. Orc Boyz in the back protecting 2 units of Savage Orc Arrer Boys, who are most likely there to lay some hurt down on perhaps my Handgunners or maybe my Spearmen who don't have shields. So you can see I've started to move my lines such that I'm able to respond to his approaching cav. You can see I've got 1 Spearman unit here, 1 Spearman unit here. I've got my Demigryphs on this side. Empire Knights, I'm still just kind of running around. I'm going to move my line a bit forward and stretch it out so that they can't potentially kind of break through the creases here and get into my archers. You can see moving another Spearman unit over to here. I'm positioning my Handgunners so that they can shoot over the top of the Spearmen and hopefully hit their cav when they charge in, because these Handgunners will do work to cav. You can see pushing out my Swordsmen a bit to cover the crease and have my Greatswords in between there. So there shouldn't be any way that he can break through the front line and sneak a unit through into my gunners. He does pop a, whatever this is, Itchy Nuisance. That might have been a mistake. It was definitely a little too far ahead to be popping. Not going to be doing much as my units are just kind of sitting here. And we can see now the main engagement is about to take place. You can see Orc Big Uns charging into Swordsman, and I was too slow and did not get the counter charge in, so that's going to be doing quite a bit of damage. And you can see now my Handgunners, since the cav aren't in range yet, they are going to be opening fire into these Black Orcs. I want them to be targeting the cavalry, but the cavalry is too far away, and the Black Orcs are the next best target, as Handgunners have armor piercing and will do quite a bit of damage. You can see one volley's taken a decent amount of their health. Now I am counter-charging with the rest of my troops. We can see I'm moving my Greatswords to engage this unit of Black Orcs, and these Greatswords will engage that unit. Their Goblin Big Boss has engaged my Swordsmen, and you can see now he's moving Orc Big Uns over on the flank here. I have to be very careful, because I don't want my Spearmen, my anti-large units, getting caught up in fighting Orc Big Uns or any of his front line, because that means I'll have less troops to counter his cavalry, which is ready to sneak around the flanks. We can see a cast of, I'm not exactly sure what spell that is, getting a nice connection with my general, but not doing that much damage. We can see some arrow fire. He is indeed targeting my handgunners, a good target, and I'm going to start pulling them around so that they get a little more out of range, and so that I get ready for the approaching cav. So now his cav is moving in from both flanks, and sadly I have a mistake here where I'm microing everything else and do not manage to pull my Empire Knights away in time. So now the Squig Herd do charge headlong into the Spearmen, and there's not really much of a way around, and he's going to try and sneak the Boar Boy Big Uns around, but the Demigryphs charge headlong into them. At the same time, my Empire Knights get charged by the Boar Boy Big Uns, and I'm moving my Spearmen to engage the Squigs. My Handgunners and Stirland's Revenge have turned and are now firing into the flank of the Boar Boy Big Uns. So now my Empire Knights counter-charge here as the Demigryphs are coming into support and take massive chunk of health off of the Boar Boy Big Uns, and my Gunners are doing quite a good job here. Now, an issue or a little bit of mistake here from my opponent, the Savage Orc Airboy should definitely be moved up farther, because as it stands right now, because they're here, they're only really in range of this little area of the handgunners, and therefore are not actually getting much damage done with how many shots they're firing. We can see another itchy nuisance is being popped on my front line, and my front line is starting to waver here. Now, these Greatswords are doing well, but these Greatswords are getting mowed down as Grimgor is indeed in the mix here. Spearmen are taking quite a bit of damage, but thankfully I have just about wrapped up his cav force, and now I'm going to start sending the Empire Knights around and hopefully pour into the flank of the Savage Orc Airboys. Looks like I've won the right flank, but I've lost the center, and I'm doing pretty poorly on the left flank. Now what I'm going to do is I'm sending my general of the Empire over. I was hoping to kill this Night Goblin Shaman, but as he pulls Grimgor back, I decide otherwise. You can see my handgunners have taken quite a bit of damage from his archers, and as I'm trying to micro everything, I still need to get Stirland's Revenge now firing at another target as they're just kind of standing there. And as he's microing, he has forgotten his Orc Big Uns. You can see my general charges in right onto the Night Goblin Shaman and forces him into a terrified state almost immediately. You can see the Squig are coming back, so I reroute the Demigryphs to pour into the Squig. And we will see this charge coming in shortly as the Demigryphs move forward. Squig already terrified from these terror-causing Demigryphs, and you can see the other Squig force moving forward, and I'm getting my spears in position to defend against them. Now they have basically broken my center, a lot of health on the Savage Orc Big Uns, and a decent amount of health on the Black Orcs. So now I've got all my gunners firing in, but I don't have much infantry left to actually support this core. They've also he finally remembered his Orc Big Uns, and now there's a whole huge push coming in here. Not much I can do. Don't have many melee forces in range. My melee forces are all gathered in the center, and now that I've routed a lot of his force here, I'm going to start trying and pull everyone over here and retreat my gunners, as they do not want to be in that fight. Now sadly the Squig Herd did manage to juke around my Spearmen and pour into the side of my handgunners, and you can see they're taking a massive damage already. And now with my Empire Knights and my Demigryphs, I'm getting nice charges in their back line. See Demigryphs pouring into the flank of these Savage Orc Airboys. As there is so few models, they're not going to be doing that much damage, but they're still going to be doing pretty decent. Empire Knights I'm going to be sending over this way, but now my Demigryphs are getting hammered pretty hard by the Savage Orc Airboys running on pretty low health, and my general has been taken down pretty low as well. Demigryphs moving in, hammering into the front of the Savage Orc Airboys, and now the Empire Knights for a charge of their own, and my general did charge the Night Goblin Shaman and just about kill him. Now my Empire Knights have rerouted since the Demigryphs are taking care of these ones, and they're going to be charging into the flank of the Savage Orc Airboys, doing a decent amount of damage and routing them from the field. You can see over here I have routed a large part of the Greenskin force after rallying my troops, and now it's mainly Grimgor here. As long as Grimgor stays in the fight and at high health, there's not much I can do. It's starting, or I can't win because his Greenskins will keep coming back as long as Grimgor has not lost will to fight. Really, when it comes to fighting Greenskins, you have to kill their leader. Once their leader falls, their leadership just is not enough to sustain just more fighting, essentially. So now you can see General of the Empire getting ready. I'm trying to surround him in melee troops before I send the General in and hopefully get a knockdown and bring him down for good. You can see I've got my Empire Knights and my Demigryphs just charging things in the back line, and now the General of the Empire charges in here. And I believe that's a Griffon, not a Demigryph. I was definitely saying it wrong before. Grimgor Ironhide starting to take a lot of leadership damage, swinging more in my favor as I've got my remnants of my Stirland's Revenge firing into these just about routing orcs. And as Grimgor routs, so too does the Greenskin force. A mass rout ensues on the enemy line, and that will serve the victory for the Empire. See, going into this last screen, definitely a pretty close fight up until the end. Demigryphs definitely doing a lot of work, absolutely shredding Orc Boar Big Uns and the Squig Herd. My front line did get melted pretty hard by the enemy front line. Thankfully, my gunners were actually able to do quite a bit of work. Not a whole ton of kills, but still definitely did a lot of damage. General, I made a mistake in letting him get a little bit too low. I sent him in, and then he ended up getting chunked down quite a bit. So that was my mistake. He shouldn't have gotten that low, and if it was closer, he potentially could have died to Grimgor. A questionable decision, bringing the Goblin Big Boss on foot, as generally you want the Goblin Big Boss there to stop enemy charges. That's usually what he's brought for. You know, you send him on your spider and you throw him into the middle of an enemy cav charge, and they'll all kind of clump around him, and he'll take a lot of the damage away from their charge. Squig Herd, a very interesting choice. They have very low leadership, and terror will hugely affect them. So it's a high-risk, high-reward unit. If you can get them into the enemy backline, then they can be doing a lot of damage for not too much of a gold cost. But in reality, it's usually not something brought often, and they're a little too squishy to be worth it. So, you know, overall, not necessarily standard comps from both sides, but a very interesting fight between myself and Athamas. So, I hope you all enjoyed that strategical analysis of the Empire versus the Greenskins. I have just started getting into learning Empire. I have not really played much with Empire, if at all, before this point. So, if you have criticisms, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I would like to thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Cheers, guys.